Republicans won the immigration debate when it was about an open border. They lost it when it was about ICE enforcement on American streets. Much like war, whichever side defines the field of battle in politics wins. And now the Republicans want to switch the field of battle about immigration. Again, they want to make it a fight over sanctuary cities. Clearly, that is the new talking point.
President Trump is calling on the United States Congress to immediately pass legislation ending sanctuary cities once and for all.
Why this has happened in Minneapolis is because you have a mayor, you have a governor who has declared Minneapolis a sanctuary city.
It was one of the first bills that I introduced in Congress is the No Sanctuary for Criminals Act, saying that we should not have sanctuary states.
Get ready to hear sanctuary cities on repeat from now until November. Mike Nellis, Democratic strategist, author of Endless Urgency on Substack. Steve Cortes, former senior media advisor for J.D. Vance's Senate campaign, former senior advisor for Trump's 2016-2020 presidential campaigns, is with us. Gents, good to see both of you. Nellis, I'm going to start with you. I've heard so often, even from you, the talking points that we want to deport, meaning we as Democrats, liberals, whatever you want to call yourselves, want to deport criminals. We're all on board of that. Why then do so many Democrats have a sacred cow of a city policy and state policies that protect illegal immigrants who committed crimes?
Well, I'd flip that conversation back because what the Republicans are doing right now through
I'm sure
DHS
you would flip it at, but why don't you just answer the question?
I will answer the question if you let me get there. But okay, great. But look, I don't think it's a sacred cow. What I think it is that you have a federal government that's targeting people indiscriminately, and Democrats aren't going to cooperate with that. Now, if the Republicans want to get back to common sense here, I'm willing to meet them halfway as a Democrat. I think a lot of Democrats are. We didn't do a good job securing the border in the Biden years, but the simple common sense position here is to end this chaos that's happening on American streets, keep the border closed, and create a pathway to citizenship for people who are here legally, who are being peacefully, who are living their lives, taking care of their families, and get rid of anybody who's dealing drugs or sex trafficking or being violent. It's a simple place to be, and the administration can't move itself there. And you said at the beginning of this segment that, Republicans are desperate to switch this conversation to sanctuary cities. Of course they are. I mean, they got somebody else killed this weekend in Minneapolis. They want to talk about anything other than that.
Steve, I feel as though that would be a perfectly valid point if sanctuary cities were a new thing to provide sanctuary from the ICE raids that have happened, whether or not you agree with them or not. That would be a perfectly valid argument from Mike. But forgive me, I think we've been talking about sanctuary cities since like the early 2000s, right?
Yes. No, this problem has been around for decades. Why? Because let's be honest about it. Democrats want mass amnesty. They can't convince the American people of that. They can't make a persuasive point for that. So what do? They do selective amnesty where they believe they have the power to do so. But the reality is we should have this conversation, absolutely, about sanctuary cities. But let me put some of the onus on the Republicans. We can't be effective in this argument unless we get this passed through the Congress. We have the majority right now. We rarely act like it. Why earn the majority if you're not going to defund every single sanctuary city, every single sanctuary state? And by the way, let's start with Tim Walz, because Governor Walz, who was really staging effectively an insurrection against federal law with his gang of lunatic Antifa Karens, they need to be taught a lesson. And the best way to do it is financially, is through the power of the purse.
Can I jump in there for a second
PD ignored ICE
respond to
requests.
Steve?
Yeah, but let me just give you this, though, Mike.
Right.
Boston police ignored all the requests received from ICE in 2025 to detain illegal immigrants. So that's the Boston Globe. That's not Fox News or anybody else reporting that. I think it's a pretty obvious truth. And to Steve's point, sanctuary cities is something going back to the Obama years that cities were doing this. So I'm not sure how you can justify it by saying they're protecting people suddenly now from ICE goons, if that's the word you were going to use.
Well, first of all, sanctuary cities go back even further than that, and it's something that's been settled and established with the Supreme Court that local and state governments have the authority to control their local law enforcement officials. And what cracks me up about this conversation, it's a consistent thing you're seeing with the Republican Party today, is that their values are so situational. Oh, we believe in state control and states' rights and local rights, but not on this. Oh, we believe in the Second Amendment, but not for Alex Preddy. who was murdered this weekend, and then they're spending the whole time attacking him because he had a legal firearm and a concealed carry weapon that he didn't brandish or pull on ICE agents. Oh, we believe in the First Amendment, but not here. We believe in this, but not here. They do it all the time. They want the Constitution for them, but they don't want the Constitution for us or anyone who disagrees with them. And that's especially frustrating. If they want to pass the law, pass the law.
Well, Steve,
the problem is they can't do it.
Listen, I'm not situational.
Right, and Democrats can't pass the law on the other. But Steve, isn't situational value of constitutional rights now sort of becoming a thing for both sides?
No, and it certainly shouldn't be from the political right. We're not situational at all. We want every illegal migrant out of this country, okay? Not only the ones who have committed additional crimes once they got here, the crime of trespassing into our nation. We want every one of them gone. That's not situational. That's blanket. That's fair. It's just. It protects American workers, American streets, American national security. That is the statement. Now, how we proceed and go about that process, there's a lot of different lanes, and let's start with the worst first, meaning the most dangerous people. But the point is, they all have to go. So what I'm advocating for is the opposite, actually, of situational. And regarding these public officials, again, people like Mayor Johnson in Chicago, people like Governor Newsom in California, like Tim Walz in Minnesota, these people who are engaged in effectively color revolutions against the United States government. And this has happened a lot throughout American history, by the way. It's not new, right? We've had these in the past. And when it comes to federal law, and immigration is clearly federal law cannot be nullified. And previous presidents have taken very strong actions, including people like Eisenhower sending actual troops, not law enforcement, American troops, into places like Little Rock. We have precedent for this, and it should happen again right now in Minneapolis.
Mike, you get the last word. Yeah. What happens when Republicans do exactly that, which is say, we are going to either defund sanctuary cities or we are going to send in federal agents to do into the jails to do what the locals will not?
Well, you're going to see even more chaos and violence and death, I think, from ICE agents and CBP agents than you're seeing right now. That's what's going to happen. They can't pass a law.
So you're telling me if ICE goes to the jails to enforce immigration law against criminals, you're going to see riots over that?
I think here's what I think you're going to see. I think what you're seeing is the federal government overstepping its bounds because Congress can't pass any laws and because the Trump administration can't coalesce around a very common sense thing. You're right. They won on the border in 2024, but they're losing everywhere on immigration. Donald Trump is double digits negative on his best issue, and it's because he's so far away from the mainstream. Steve wants to say that the majority of Americans want every person who's here illegally removed, but that's not that's not true. A Pew poll released just earlier last year has only 35% of Americans want that. Most people.
Yeah, the numbers have changed on it. The numbers have changed.
I don't believe that that's true, but I'm sure you can find a poll that shows anything. But I don't think that's true.
No.
Well,
the majority do want
and you know, if that were true,
then people would support what Donald Trump is doing right now, but they don't.
There was a poll about that. The good news is that you got two guys who are pollsters who make a lot of money from polls, and they can find a poll to tell you anything they want. Gentlemen, good to see both of you. Thank you very much. They both laughed at that because it's true. Mike Nellis, Steve Cortes.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.